Welcome back. At last, we are returning to our Damascus barrel project. Over the past several months, we have explored early 1720s techniques of making wrought iron barrel tubes a la Portuguese. And in our last episode, it's been a whole month since we've tackled it, we moved forwards in time to attempt the wrapping techniques to actually make a helically wrapped Damascus barrel tube. Now this was wrapped out of mild steel. We did learn some important lessons from it, but I'm not going to be able to learn how to forge weld this mild steel barrel tube like this because complex forge welds in mild steel are not very easy to do. So, in order to continue learning the skills of how to make a Damascus barrel, we're going to need to use a material that forge welds better. I still have some wrought iron left over from the Norwich castle that was salvaged by my friends at Holcombe Forge. A thank you to them. And so we could just do this out of wrought iron and then practice the forge welds. But you see, the end goal is Damascus barrels, not a wrought iron barrel. See, the trouble with wrought iron is that it required a very heavy wall thickness to be strong enough to withstand the forces of it being fired. Wrought iron has almost no carbon, not as strong as steel that has carbon in it. So you say, well, why wouldn't they just use steel? Well, any steel that was available in the late 1700s and early 1800s, it would not have been as consistent as modern steel, and the carbon percentage would have been too high. When the carbon percentage in steel gets high, much like in a razor blade, it'll be very hard, but that means it'll also be very brittle. So by laminating this inconsistent but high carbon steel with the wrought iron, you're able to make a combination that has a lower relative carbon content through it, thanks to the carbon diffusion that happens between the high carbon steel and the wrought iron layers. This is the origins and reasons for Damascus blade making, but it is also the origins and motivation for Damascus barrels. And so I'm going to take this wrought iron block, this mid-carbon 1040 or EN8 steel, and we're going to turn them into a monster billet in order for us to make our first attempts of forge welding Damascus spiraled barrels. Here we go, wrought iron! All right, 70 millimeters wide. While it's in the fire, as you know, I recently went on a trip to Paris to acquire this lovely historic bit of machinery, this rolling mill. And it turns out I wasn't the only person to recently go to Paris to acquire something. It just happens to be that I paid for it. Check this out. I'm sure you've heard about it, but there was a break-in at the Louvre in Paris, and I just saw on our sponsor Ground News, they estimate the jewels that were stolen to be worth 88 million euros. Bloody hell.
You could say that they're rolling in dough.
Well, I don't know, it's probably going to be pretty hard for them to sell it. Now, what I really love about using Ground News, which is a news app and website, is that it collates information from all sorts of different sources and it presents it in a really nice bullet point summary that suits me very well. I get the notifications through on my phone and boop, I go, ah, great. Or I go, oh, that's bad. But one of the unique features about Ground News is the bias comparison feature. You can see how the coverage is different from left-leaning news outlets to right-leaning news outlets, and they've got brilliant filters to be able to find the articles that are left-leaning, right-leaning, or from a local news source. For example, cafe and hardware store in the city of Norwich recently got broken into. What a bloody shame. You can set the app up to easily be able to see the news that you want to see, US, science, technology, as well as articles that might be in your blind spot or have coverage that's particularly one-sided. I love having Ground News on my phone. I think it's just great. And even cooler, it was founded by a former NASA engineer. So please, go to the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen to get 40% off the Vantage plan. It's the same plan I use, and that gives you access to all of their features. Again, please go to groundnews.com/Alec. Get that plan. We love you guys supporting our sponsors. Let's get back to it. Right, now the hot work continues. On to the other stuff. This piece is the 1040 or EN8 carbon steel. It's noticeably harder to forge than the wrought iron. There's another bit of wrought iron coming out.
One of the downsides with wrought iron is it can delaminate. This is why wrought iron eventually became not the material of choice for making things. It's because it is, by its nature, an imperfect material. It's made from forging and folding and forging and folding and forging and folding that iron. So there are inclusions in it, and it'll sometimes want to delaminate. Right, back to the steel. God, everything is hot in here.
All right, so 1, 2, 3. This is 1040. And we show 3 wrought iron. Should have 3 wrought iron. Forgot to do 1. There we go. That's a big old stack of steel and iron right there. Now, it might look like that's a ton of material, but I wouldn't be surprised if after we're said and done, that is only enough for like 1, maybe 2 barrel experiments.
What, you're making a cannon?
No, it's just all the heating and beating. It's all going to turn to this stuff, Jamie. Iron oxide. And of course the grinding and the cutting and all of this. And on the note of the grinding and the cutting, once these are all cool, what we're going to do is we're going to do some cutting to length, as well as some cleaning up of the surfaces so we can make a monster stack and weld all that together. About an hour has passed, and I had the idea, instead of standing at the grinder grinding these things, why don't I go see if my neighbour Paul, who has a sandblasting outfit, as well as the machinery to do the sandblasting. I mean, it's like a coveralls, really, isn't it? Is the outfit. But I was thinking more like he runs a sandblasting business. Anyway, my neighbour Paul took these to his industrial sandblasting kit, and look at that. There is no scale left on it. And it took him like 8 minutes to do this whole lot. Have we found the winning strategy for cleaning materials before forge welding? I hope so. Anyway, let's now cut these things to size, stack them up.
And weld them?
Yes.
Into a new billet?
Mm-hmm.
And then forge it?
Oh yeah. $10.40 wrought iron. $10.40 wrought iron. $10.40 wrought iron. I'm quite certain this is the largest billet of Damascus I've ever made.
Is it? I'm sure you must have made a bigger billet than that.
This is the largest billet of Damascus that I've made this week.
Infinito tren nos acaba. Los paisajes cambian sin cesar.
As you can see, this billet is just enormous. It's already too long for the forge, so I'm going to cut it in half using this. And then once I've cut it in half, I can weld a handle on the second piece, and then we can be working 2 billets that are each half as heavy. Having forged out the bar, we need to think about what our next steps are before we get to the wrap. So, the most famous type of Damascus steel barrel is a multi-bar type. That involves at least 3 opposingly twisted strands that are then forge welded into one flat bar and then wrapped up into the barrel. Because we're still very much in the learning stages, and the key thing that I want to learn isn't whether I can forge these 3 bars into one bar. I know I can do that. The key thing I want to learn is how to do the wrap welding. For efficiency's sake, we're going to go with a single twist. So we're going to take our square bar, twist it, forge it into a flat bar, and then wrap that flat bar a single bar twist and wrap as opposed to a multi-bar twist and wrap. In order to not hurt myself, I plan to use the lathe to do the twisting, and so I needed to make some little adapters to be able to hold this 26 millimeters, about an inch square bar. With that done, I can cut off the useless ends of our wrought iron 1040 steel Damascus, and we can preheat it in the forge before using the old Big Bertha heating torch and, you know, really getting this thing nice and warm before we do some twisting. Alrighty, here we go. Get in there. Get in that hole. There we go. Okie doke. Now, theoretically... Oh, great. Everything's going wrong. completely cooled down. Okay, I think we're gonna have to do it a little bit at a time. So I'm just gonna heat like a 6-inch long section, twist the 6-inch long section to completion, then heat the next little bit. Oh no! No! I thought it was enough to control the heat with the torch, heat the things that I wanted to heat, and let kind of the natural state of affairs cool the rest. But I should have got the compressed air going to cool this area because obviously we twisted it right off, which means that it wasn't strong enough. And while I was thinking we were doing a nice job of heating this area here and only twisting this stuff, this, little bit by little bit, got tighter and tighter until it was no more. Nice work, Alec. I'm gonna forge that into a little bit of a smaller square, use a slightly smaller square adapter, and keep going with just less material. That'll do. Okay, I'm glad to be done with that. Terrifying in all sorts of ways. I would have liked to get that a little bit more even and consistent. I like the density up here, but obviously when we started getting into that density down here, it then broke off. So I'm gonna take the wins we can get. Now, we put that under a whole load of stress twisting it. Gonna have to heat it up to forge welding temperature, consolidate it back. Hopefully kind of any beginnings of delamination will then weld back together, forge it down to some flat bar. Something that kind of comes to mind here is we do have a lot of scale here on the surface. So it'd be good to get rid of that so we don't forge it into those little cracks of the twist. Would be a good candidate for sandblasting if our neighbor's got the sandblaster up and running. Alrighty, so again, my awesome neighbor Paul has now put this on his sandblasting setup. We've got all the scale off of there. It's now time to hammer it all back into submission at a very high temperature so that we forge weld any cracks, because as you can see, looks like we've got a little crackage there. And then we're gonna forge it into some flat bar. I made this kiss block, so that's gonna be our thickness. We got ourselves one long rectangle. Now, let's go back to have a look at our first wrapping attempt. Now, one of the things that you'll remember I mentioned in that video is that I didn't like this gap that's formed. When you bend a bit of flat bar, what happens is the inner face experiences a compression. The outer face experiences tension and therefore gets narrower as it's stretched, leading to this trapezoid cross-section. I don't want that because that is going to be very hard to get this face and that face to meet up in the middle and get forge welded without experiencing tons of time at heat getting oxidized. I want a nice parallel meeting of those two faces. The only way to achieve that is by preforming the bar the opposite way, so that as the outer stretches, it gets narrower, but then ends up being parallel. While I'm talking, I'm gonna put this block of steel in the fire, and you're gonna see why. But what is super exciting is I was sent an email by a master bladesmith, Steve Culver, who is one of the people that has most recently successfully done this spiral Damascus barrel weld, and he even turned it into a functional barrel. And Mr. Culver was so gracious as to give me tons of information, not only about the history of Damascus barrel making from all of his research over the years, but also on the processes that he used. And this idea of reversing the trapezium is also a concept that he had to use in order to make his successful weld. So that's good. It means that we're headed in the right direction, and it's extra good because it's just emblematic of the type of people that are involved in the knife world, the blacksmithing world. When other people are trying to do what you've already done, they're thrilled about it. So I'm very grateful to Mr. Culver, as well as all of the other people that have helped us to this point on the Damascus Barrel project. And thanks to his insights, what I'm going to do is I'm going to forge a bottom die to preform this. I don't want to stand at a grinder for 3 years putting that preform on it. No. All I've got to do is put a preform on about 3 inches of this bit of mild steel that I ran through the rolling mill, heat up that block of 4340, and then smash this preformed bar into it, bish bash bosh. We've got a new bottom die. As much as I don't want to grind the preform into this, I do want to grind through some of the little cold shuts that we see before we put it into the preform and forge it. All right, we're getting our tools ready for this wrapping. In the last episode, one of the things I found is I wanted to extend this dog a little bit, so we're gonna weld something on there. Yeah, to grind that out so this will fit in there. Ooh, unless put a dog on the other side. That now fits. Boom! And we'll get twisty with it. A lot of work just to get to this point, so hopefully it doesn't fall apart. All right, Jamie, it's go time, baby. There we go. Slot it in. A little bit further. There we go. Perfect. And then now more angle. More angle. Good. Ugh, it's already ripped apart. No! Oh no! Did not get far before it went all sorts of nasty. Okay, hotter temperatures. I must remember hotter temperatures. Oh, we've got more delamination. Oh! Not good. Could this have been solved if I went the multi-bar route? I don't know. The layers would be finer, they'd have been worked more. More time at welding, heat getting manipulated into smaller bars, maybe. I have to say, the pre-form angle looks really good. The amount of cracks that we have does not. There we go. Yeah, mate, I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know if this is worth even messing with. The only way this is worth messing with is if I can learn something. If I can't learn something from it, we might as well call it quits. Completely ripping apart. It'd be one thing if it had failed at the point in the process that I was trying to work at and refine, which is actually the welds of these. But it's failed at the wrapping part, which we've already tackled. We tackled the wrapping part. Could it be because I didn't grind far enough through the cold shuts of the twisting? Could it be because I attempted to forge weld the layers of wrought iron and 1040 after only sandblasting? Could it be because the wrought iron is a little bit of a, wrought iron's a little bit crusty. Wrought iron comes in different grades. Some wrought iron has a very fine grain to it. This stuff, a little bit delaminated, as we've seen from forging it. Could it just be that I didn't have the anvil pointing to true north? Even though the material's ruined, maybe I can just wrap up this whole bar and then at least try doing the welding of these coils. Going to be useless, but maybe it can serve as an education in jump welding those coils. Yeah, that's nasty.
That's almost all the way through, isn't it?
Yeah.
In a weird way, it looks actually really cool with those cracks in it.
It is quite artisanal, isn't it? God, it does not like this. That's a fat rip, Jamie. Yucky. Wow, beauty.
Perfect.
That there is a brilliant display of skill and craftsmanship, if I dare say so. We definitely learned a much better technique for making a tight wrap. And I think that's a lot closer to something that's forge weldable, thanks to the preform, that trapezoid preform. That's just perfect. That's 68 degrees. Oh. Well, you know what, Jamie? In a couple hundred years' time, nobody's going to be breaking into any art galleries to steal that, are they, unfortunately? We've got a long ways to go. I hope that the next time I see you, I'm reporting in with some better progress on this whole project. Thank you for your time. Please be sure to go and download Ground News, groundnews.com/Alec. You supporting our sponsors means that as sad as it is to have had a colossal failure and a waste of a week's work,
We can still eat food for dinner.
yep, we can still eat. See you soon. Bye-bye.